All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice exam series. This is exam number 7 from our 5th edition, and we're going through another set of questions together. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Edward would pull on clothes to gain attention prior to learning to tap someone on the shoulder for attention. This was taught through differential reinforcement of an alternative behavior. Although successful for a while, tapping on the shoulder stopped receiving attention, so Edward started to pull clothes again. What describes started to pull clothes again? Question is specifying we are looking at started to pull clothes again. And how are we going to describe the behavior of pulling clothes again? Remember, we always start, what is the question asking? And then we ask, well, what do we know? We know Edward would pull on clothes to gain attention prior to learning a different behavior. How did he learn that different behavior? He learned through differential reinforcement of an alternative behavior, meaning the new behavior was reinforced. The old behavior, pulling on clothes, was put on extinction. So this is already guiding us to our answer. Already, you should be able to start predicting what you think the answer choice will be. Because although for a while, tapping on the shoulder stopped receiving, although successful for a while, meaning the pulling clothes behavior was reduced through extinction, the tapping on the shoulder stopped receiving attention. So Edward started to pull clothes again. Make sure you read that carefully. Although successful for a while, meaning pulling on clothes to gain attention, extinction was successful, the new behavior stopped receiving attention. And so since the new behavior stopped receiving attention, the old behavior came back. Now, what do we call that in the context of an extinction procedure? A, extinction. Well, extinction was the intervention that was used to first reduce the behavior. But now the behavior is back. So extinction's already over and the behaviors come back. Same as an extinction burst. An extinction burst happens as extinction is going on. We're past extinction, right? Extinction was successful. The pulling clothes reduced, and now it's back. So options we're looking at are really spontaneous recovery and resurgence. And what's the difference? With spontaneous recovery, it's the sudden reemergence of a previously extinct behavior. Now, how is that different than resurgence? Well, with resurgence, the new behavior stops receiving reinforcement. So in this case, the new behavior of tapping on the shoulder stopped receiving attention, stopped receiving reinforcement. And so the old behavior came back, or the old behavior went through resurgence. To understand, right, the difference between spontaneous recovery and resurgence, and understand these two ideas happen after extinction has already been successful. There are several vending machines located in the College of Engineering building. Although floor 3 has the best machine, everyone knows to avoid the machine because when you put dollars into the machine will take the dollars without letting you choose an item. What consequences likely led to the avoidance of the machine upstairs? So we're looking for the consequence that has led to the avoidance of the machine upstairs. Now be careful with that word avoidance, right? Let's look at it in the context of the question. What do we know so far? We know many vending machines in the building. Floor 3 has the best machine, but nobody goes to that machine. And why do people no longer go to that machine? Well, they know when you put dollars into the machine takes the dollars, doesn't let you choose an item. So if we think about our antecedent, our behavior, and our consequence, the antecedent might be you see the vending machine. The behavior is you put the dollar in the machine. The consequence is you lose your dollar. Your dollar is taken from you. And as a result, what has happened? Well, now nobody goes to that machine. Let's first ask ourselves, did the future behavior increase or did it decrease? Well, it decreased, right? People no longer go to the machine, right? So very first time, right, the consequence led to a reduction in behavior. So we're typically going to be looking at punishment here, right? Because punishment reduces. Extinction also reduces behavior, but in the context of the question, our dollar was removed from us, making it a punishment contingency. And then we have to ask ourselves, was this positive or negative punishment? Well, positive means the consequence added something. Something was added to the scenario. In this case, though, we're looking at a negative consequence because our dollar was taken. Again, think about ABC. See the machine, put your dollar in. Consequence is the machine takes your dollar, you don't get anything in return. Your dollar is removed, it's gone. So the consequence that likely led to the avoidance of the machine upstairs is not positive or negative reinforcement, right? Because visiting that machine decreased in the future. And it isn't positive or negative. It's not positive punishment, right? Because the consequence was the removal of the dollar. So it has to be negative punishment. Negative because the consequence was removal, and punishment because the behavior decreased. Now, when we avoid the machine upstairs, right, we might be receiving negative reinforcement because we've avoided the dollar being taken. But we're not talking about current times, right? We're talking about the consequence that led to people no longer using the machine. And since the behavior of using that machine reduced, or in this case, went away almost completely, that behavior was punished, the dollar was taken away, making it negative. The consequence was likely D, negative punishment. Mary and Tony are on a cross country road trip. Mary says she is hungry, so Tony starts looking for food. Tony sees a sign that says diner 4 miles ahead, so Tony says diner 4 miles ahead. Mary starts driving towards the diner. The sign is considered a what? Now, what makes some of these questions difficult is that there are a lot of things going on in the question. So it's your job to identify what am I looking at? What am I evaluating? In this case, we're evaluating the sign. So we need to look at the sign in the context of this question. What do we know? We know they're on a road trip. Mary says she's hungry, so Tony looks for food. Tony sees a sign that says diner 4 miles ahead. In response, Tony says diner 4 miles ahead. Now, immediately here, you should be thinking verbal behavior. You have a sign, which is a verbal SD. Tony engages in verbal behavior. Tony's verbal behavior was evoked by this sign. So what are we going to consider that sign? A nonverbal SD that evoked a tact. Well, Tony's verbal behavior was not evoked by a nonverbal SD. Written word is a verbal SD. A sign is a verbal SD. So the nonverbal part is just incorrect. Same as B. The sign is not a nonverbal SD. The sign is considered a verbal stimulus. When Tony read that sign, which we have now established as a verbal stimulus, what type of verbal behavior did he engage in? We have tact or textual. Now, this is when verbal behavior knowledge becomes very important, right? You don't just want to know or think about a tact in terms of labeling or textual in terms of reading. You want to think about it in terms of what's evoking this behavior, what's reinforcing this behavior. So what evokes a tact? A tact is evoked by a nonverbal stimulus. So if Tony's behavior was evoked by a verbal stimulus, which is the sign is a verbal stimulus, it can't possibly be a tact. And so that leaves us with only D as our possible option. So simply knowing, right, what's a verbal stimulus versus a nonverbal stimulus and what evokes verbal behavior, we've eliminated A, B, and C and gotten D without even really worrying about what Tony said. Now, it is a textual, right? It's got point-to-point correspondence with the verbal SD, but we didn't need to know that. We didn't need to get that far. The main things you want to know, the 4 main things for verbal behavior. What evokes the verbal behavior? What reinforces the verbal behavior? Does it have point-to-point correspondence? And does it have formal similarity? If you know those 4 things about our primary verbal operants, you should never miss one of these questions, because eventually you're going to rule out answer choices simply due to the fact that whatever evoked the verbal behavior was wrong. For instance, in this case, a verbal stimulus evoked the behavior. It can't be A and B, and it can't be a tact because the tact is evoked by a nonverbal SD. So the sign must be considered a verbal stimulus that evoked a textual. Samantha organizes a scavenger hunt for her employees for their weekend retreat. Samantha wants to use an independent group contingency and will separate the employees into teams of 3. Samantha wants to give prizes based on points scored. How can Samantha successfully use her preferred contingency? Question wants to know about Samantha using her preferred contingency. And what is her preferred contingency? Well, it is an independent group contingency. Whenever you're giving an actual term, you want to immediately define that term in your head. And you should be fluent, right? We need to be 100% fluent for this exam. And you don't have to necessarily go deep dive into you don't have to memorize Cooper, essentially, but you need to at least be fluent in the basics of the task list, each task list item. So an independent group contingency is what? An independent group contingency exists when there's a group and each member of that group is responsible for their own reinforcement, meaning each individual's behavior is going to produce their own reinforcement. So Samantha wants to use an independent group contingency for a scavenger hunt for her employees, teams of 3, prizes based on points scored. Well, we can start predicting already. We have teams of 3. The teams aren't necessarily going to be relevant because still each individual on that team is going to control their reinforcement. So A, give a point to the team if the team finds a required item. Or if we're giving a point to the whole team, right, for finding a required item, that's more of an interdependent contingency. Everybody's reliant on everybody else. What about B? Give a point to each individual on the team who finds a required item. Yes, right? We are looking at the individual, not the team, when independent group contingency is in play. C, give a point to each team if one pre-selected person on the team finds a required item. This sounds like the hero contingency or the dependent group contingency, where the team is reliant on one person or a small group of people. So what we have here is a situation where Samantha wants to use an independent group contingency, which focuses on the individual rather than the team or a specific individual. So Samantha might give a point to each individual who finds a required item. So group contingencies, it's all about identifying how is reinforcement earned? Who is earning the reinforcement for who? Which of the following statements is false about Interobserver Agreement? Well, let's just start with this word false, right? Very important. Words like not, words like false, extremely important to identify immediately, meaning 3 of these are likely true, right? If 1 is false, that means 3 are probably true. So what is false about Interobserver Agreement? So we can either identify the true ones or we can find the false one. Well, let's just do both, right? Let's look at A. The minimum acceptable Interobserver Agreement may vary depending on what was measured. Is that true or false? The minimum acceptable agreement varies. Well, that can be true. Typically, we want to see 80% agreement, and 80% is not a hard and fast standard. It's just what most people used. But think about if 2 people were reading the same written document and counting spelling errors. We would hope the Interobserver Agreement was higher there, right? Because taking Interobserver Agreement on spelling errors should not bring in a lot of fluctuation. That's very different than taking I away while you're observing a lot of different behaviors at the same time. So IOA, Interobserver Agreement, can vary depending on what was measured. That is true. What about B? If Interobserver Agreement exists, then the recorded values will be the same. Now, this is important, right? Read this carefully. The recorded values will be the same. How is that different than C? If Interobserver Agreement exists, then the recorded values will be accurate. Well, the same is not the same as accurate. If I put 7 and you put 7, that's the same. If the actual accurate number is 8, well, our numbers aren't accurate, but they're still the same. So even though we agree, that doesn't mean we're right. So B is going to be true, while C is going to be false. Our numbers can be the same. I can have 7, you can have 7. Those are the same. If the actual number is 8, then those values are not accurate. So C is false. Always read all the answer choices. D, Interobserver Agreement increases the trustworthiness of the data. Absolutely does. So the false statement here is C. If Interobserver Agreement exists, then the recorded values will be accurate. Me and you can both agree on data. We can agree on what we observed, and we can both be wrong. Just because we agree doesn't make us right. Awesome. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you have not already. It really helps. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our BCBA study materials. We also have RBT study materials available on our channel and the website. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.